Hello, welcome to episode 4 of That's How It Is. Our guest today is the wonderful Baeginning. We're going to be diving deeper into intersectionality, looking at where transphobia meets misogyny, and learning a little bit more about what we can do in our own spaces to make sure everybody feels welcome and able to be themselves. Enjoy the episode. This is Bae, everyone. Chloe, you said you're known more as like a Fall Guys champion. I definitely remember that because I definitely remember being in your streams because you had how many crowns?
God, when I haven't played the game in like 2 months, let's just say 3.4 thousand.
God, I remember
Sure.
I got a crown on Fall Guys in 2020 and I've never had one since.
You know, that is valid. There is no back when I was playing the game and everyone would be like, "How do you have so many?" I would just be like, "I think only like 25% of the people who have played the game have won. I get one."
Yeah.
So you have to like give that like perspective to some people, and
No.
that's really like what I like to do. Is I like try to like any kind of game that I'm doing, I like to try to give a little bit of perspective. I tend to have a focus on the things that I'm doing being things that I have like a passion in or a knowledge of.
Yeah.
So when I am trying to, people will come and oftentimes saying, all right, well, how do you do this? Why do you do this? I like to be able to give that a little bit more elaborate reason and make them feel like it's not as easy as I make something seem.
And obviously you only make it seem easy because you're talented at it. You've practiced.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think you can definitely tell. I'm sure it's the same with all games. I don't play a lot of online games, but with Fall Guys especially, you can definitely tell when you're playing with people that play it all the time. And you're there like, I don't remember how to grab. I don't know how to get this wall. I've never seen this one before. And there's always a new like route or whatever, isn't there? A new, what's it called? Like stage. I don't know what they call them. A new level anyway.
Levels. Nowadays, like a big reason why I'm not really playing the game as much anymore is just because like the updates are coming longer and longer in between things. So there's less of like new levels and stuff like that. But again, that's kind of what a lot of people had seen me for, been into like Twitch rivals and stuff like that. So I've dealt with my fair share of transphobia and misogyny from just like the competitive end of
I can imagine. Were you playing Fall Guys when Fall Guys was big as well?
Story time with me, I pretty much came back to streaming. I had been working at a retail store for a year, and then the pandemic hit. I didn't want to go back, and so I came back to streaming. I had 800 followers back then. I hadn't streamed for a year, and I started playing this game. And so like as soon as this game came out, that's what I gravitated towards, and it's what I ended up sticking with for a while.
I tried to play it with you a couple of times and I was just terrible.
I love it because I really like retro games, and it's kind of like go forwards, jump.
It sounds almost like condescending, but I tell people like at the end of the day, if you're using a controller, it's literally just jump, dive, grab. Like there's nothing more going on.
It's like Sega. It's like 2 buttons and go forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're an ambassador as well for ItGetsBetter. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people.
Sure. ItGetsBetter is an LGBTQIA plus youth charity. They specialize in like youth storytelling and stuff like that. But I've been working with them for over a year now as they started to dive more into Twitch and like TikTok realm. So I stream on like their Twitch channel once a month and just do like a little bit of storytelling with that and try to provide a little bit more education towards trans issues and queer issues in general.
I mean, we were having this exact conversation earlier where we were saying about stories being so important. I feel like there's so many people in my life and probably outside of my life that just have not heard those stories and it feels so othered and not related to me and like just what they've seen in the news. So it's obviously just negative things in the news or just a famous person or something, and then that's it. And it's really hard sometimes to converse with people on that level when they're just like, they don't have friends who are trans and they don't have friends that have had these experiences of transphobia, and they think it's all just about this one article they read about a toilet somewhere, and it's just like, I don't know how you can think that that's the pressing issue.
I was listening to the previous conversation. You were talking about the laws that are trying to be passed, and especially in like the sports side of things. Like I remember reading that I think it was like Colorado was trying to pass a law toward anti-trans in sports, and that law was affecting like 4 people total. But they make it seem like it's this big deal. When in reality, you're going through all of this hassle, all of this effort to say 4 people aren't allowed to do this.
It's so frustrating as well, because when you see the stuff in the media, I mean, we don't have the sports thing over here, but we have some other stuff going on over here around gender recognition certificates and things like that. And the issues that the media are portraying, acting like are huge issues, aren't. They're so rare. They're just things that anyone would do. It doesn't matter what kind of group that person belongs to. You know, you're always going to have good and bad people in the world.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can think that a toilet outweighs somebody dying.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say.
But it somehow does to some people.
As someone with, you know, a lot of friends who are trans, issues that are faced by that community are really big, huge
actual
issues
safety life issues
that need solving. And
toilets.
you look at the statistics and it's overwhelming and it's just ignored.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. I mean, I get so frustrated, so upset, so angry about it, and I'm a cis woman. Do you know what I mean? I can't even imagine how it would feel.
There's a reality too for a lot of people that don't realize it. We're also afraid to use the bathroom. Like don't, sometimes when I go out to a restaurant, I will hold it until I can get back home because I don't want to deal with anything. Like you think we want to just go in there and be, you know, as creepy as possible? I don't even, I sometimes I just want to not even deal with any sort of drama. Like most of us don't want to deal with that in the first place.
And I think the thing that I find that makes me so angry about it is when cis women will get up and speak against trans women and, you know, almost try and make out that trans women are predators. And I just think men don't need to do anything in order to be able to abuse women. They are doing it just fine.
So it's like...
There's a joke that my best friend and I will talk about because I've done top surgery, for example. So like she'll make a joke and be like, yeah, anytime that there's a new law, she'll just be like, oh yeah, you totally just wanted to go through the hassle of being in pain for a week recovering from a surgery just so that you can be creepy in the bathroom. Like,
oh yeah, definitely. The logic's so unsound. And what I always say to people, I'm like, your fear of men is so valid. Your fear of predatory men is so valid. But that's what your fear is. Your fear isn't with trans women. Your problem and your issues are with men, cis men. It's nothing to do with trans women.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people
trust me,
can't see.
As somebody who had to deal with a lot of cis men for most of my life, I can understand that feeling. Like I talk about this and it's such an interesting thing for me to look back on. I swam competitively in high school for 4 years. The amount of body dysphoria that I had in that locker room, having to be uncomfortable with myself, not wanting to change in front of these people there, like I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think they're too focused on that general feeling toward men that just because I also feel like that, it's almost invalidated because they know I was there at one point.
Yeah, it's almost frustrating to watch it play out and think, you know, we're all on the same side here, really, deep down, when you get underneath it all. I just really don't think the media help in any way whatsoever.
No, and I think like that's really why I try to be as educative as possible toward people. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to tolerate a lot of negativity and stuff like that. But for instance, I had a viewer back in like November who they were talking about how they their family didn't recently like vote in their previous election. Instead of being angry at them, I was like, well, I'm glad that you have that sense of privilege, and not in like the negative sense, but like you do have that innate privilege of feeling like you don't have to vote because whatever happens, you're still going to be in this, power dynamic as a cis male. And I try to tell people then, like, this is a great thing that like any ally can do. If you feel like your vote isn't going to change any thing for you, think about the people who are actually being affected, the people that you do care about. Like there are laws constantly trying to be passed that are anti-trans. The big one right now in the States is that Tennessee was passing that bill that's pretty much going to ban drag shows in like a public environment unless it's in like an adult like strip club or anything along those lines.
I saw a post about this today, and because Twitter obviously hates me, wants me to hate myself, so all it does is show me horrible things it knows I don't want to see, and it was somebody complaining about that, a guy obviously, but the video they shared was from a Japanese sex festival. So it was somebody dressed as a penis and they had a vagina and they were like having sex with themselves, but it was just a costume. But it was also like, that's for a start, it's like this is it was all very anti-LGBT, all the comments, and it's like, well, this is straight sex for a start. So it's like, how have you made this about gay people? This is a penis going in a vagina. It's just like, and you've literally just made this straight about that, and it was all about America. We need to get our country back, and obviously his screen name was like MAGA and whatever else. But the fact that you can post that and have no consequence, And unfortunately, people will see that and they will think it's true. And they will be like, God, that is disgusting. They shouldn't be doing that to kids. And also, I didn't see a kid in the video anywhere. So I don't know where it became about protecting kids, because it wasn't about that. It wasn't about any of the things. It wasn't about America. It wasn't about kids. And it certainly wasn't about the LGBT community. It was just the weirdest reach. But somebody just has to say it.
Yeah.
And it had so many comments and retweets and whatever else. And I was just like, do you have no critical thinking skills? And obviously the answer is no.
I was listening to a political TikTok recently, and they were talking about how of so many words you almost now that are described as like an adjective, not to get into like a political party, but people will say like the Democrats, and they'll use that as a noun instead of like the democratic, feeling. Like there are so many words that you just kind of tack on to somebody and label it as somebody instead of it just being this like adjective. You almost describe it as that's a person nowadays, and it's such a weird rhetoric to go down, because it's almost like you're trying to change that meaning of the word. It's almost like trying to mold it specifically into wording that only appeals to what direction you're trying to go down. And that in itself is the wild part about it.
Definitely. I think that the language people use is really telling. There can be a lot of dog whistles in the language that people use, and I think, but you have to be kind of like hyper online to see it sometimes.
That's the new thing, isn't it? Chronically online.
But you do see it, and you see it quicker maybe than someone who might not be as chronically online as you, but you kind of see straight through things straight away. But you can't expect people, you can't expect that of people to be, that online and know all the nuances in meme culture that's happening right now.
100%, especially like as I try to be, I'm very lucky with the family that I have. Everyone's very supportive. But at the same time, I constantly am having to explain everything that I'm learning on the internet. They find a book of a certain author in a closet, and they're like, "Oh, hey, remember when you used to like that?" And I'm like, "Nope, don't want anything to do with that anymore." Thing. And it's like one of those things where like that's that hyper online aspect where like everything is being broadcasted, and I'm doing my research, but to the general public, it's really not there. So you almost have to bring that education out there.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like sometimes I have to take a step back and kind of go and speak to some like non-online people and be like, what's actually breaking through into kind of the mainstream? Maybe try and focus on that, because you kind of think sometimes you can't get so wrapped up in these micro arguments with people that it doesn't really go anywhere. But equally, it doesn't make it okay for people to behave that way. But, sometimes, step back and be like, okay, what's actually breaking through? What's going to be more useful for me to try and tackle today?
At the end of the day, for better or worse, a lot of social media, we circle around and turn ourselves into our own echo chambers. Yes, a lot of people, we do try to see other things, but even like your own Twitch stream is a echo chamber of support. And so like sometimes getting out of that circle and to get out and just realize where you only have this like one narrowed way of view, it is now expanding.
Yeah, definitely. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because sometimes with the whole echo chamber thing, you think maybe I should push myself out of my boundaries a little bit more and try and see some other stuff. But equally, for a lot of people, the internet and being online is such a safe space away from the day-to-day that doesn't feel as safe. So it can be a good thing, but it can be, sometimes not a great thing.
Yeah, it kind of brings community to you that you might not have had in your local space, but it also brings across like, humans were never meant to experience this regularly, this many places in the world. Like there's no way you could have ever heard this many opinions in 5 minutes on Twitter if you didn't have it. And you wouldn't have had to deal with every single one of those because you wouldn't have had them. You might have had like the guy in the pub or, someone in your family or something else to deal with, but you would have never had that. So it's like, it's hard because obviously that can be so negative. But you were saying to me on a more positive note, you were saying to me on Twitter as well about the support that you've had and how welcoming a lot of the spaces on Twitch have been.
When I first came to Twitch, it was right as I was coming out, and I was still in my college, and I didn't really have anybody. But I was already very like fixated on like the esports side of things. And so I was like, let me just go to Twitch. I found like this one community. I was like, I want to establish that. I want to almost like give back in that sense of I had people make me feel comfortable and make me feel like I can be myself.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to be that let's say at this point in time, let's throw out a number of, let's say I average 50 people. But now imagine if that number could be 500 people, how many more people lives that I can like impact in that like positive scope of trying to have people feel that like they can be comfortable, because I know Twitch gave me that aspect of feeling comfortable, and Twitch gave me that feeling of I have these relationships that I wouldn't have had in person, and it's helped me learn a lot about myself and develop the self-confidence that I have.
Yeah. We were having this conversation a little bit earlier about sort of what you can do to kind of remove those barriers for the people after you. Is there anything that you would recommend that more streamers, would be doing to kind of create more inclusive spaces? Because I know there's this whole sort of toxic, like, comfy streamer, like, don't say you're a comfy streamer anymore, because comfy streamers are always the ones that are toxic and awful.
Yeah.
And it's just like people have this kind of umbrella, don't they, of like nice stuff, and then underneath it's like what's actually going on.
Because of that connotation of cozy, I myself don't even like having like people describe that, just because like I feel like I'm also more high energy and stuff like that, like things that like don't like you associate with that. I feel like if you are somebody who's trying to, push that generation forward, I think the best thing that I've been trying to say is that if we can just provide that education, provide that way of people realizing, how to advocate for whether it is yourself or for the people that are being directly opposed, be a little bit more outspoken. I know it's hard. And like Liv was saying, sometimes we fall into our comfort. You never know the kind of people that you're going to be able to meet on this platform if you just delve out of your comfort zone a little bit more. And I think that that's another key thing, because I know while we find comfort within where we're used to, being able to expand and like watch somebody else for a game that you maybe know, or a time of day on Twitch maybe that you're not normally there, gives you different perspectives and allows you to really like open your mind to a lot of these thoughts that maybe you wouldn't have had because your circle is very like-minded.
Yeah.
I think even with geography, because I struggle with this with the Trump election year, because I worked for an American company, so I had a lot of American friends, and everyone in the UK was like, obviously there's no way, like that is like an actual meme, there's no way that will happen, blah 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 blah. That all went on. And I remember I was DJing that night and I just was like, I'm not sure that you're right, this might happen. And I think from working at an American company and knowing so many, I mean, there was probably a big chunk of my life where I probably knew more American friends than I had here, and to just know what's kind of in the underbelly of that is so different, and most people just wouldn't have seen that. So they obviously have just like one opinion, then they're shocked, then it's polarizing, then it's so ridiculous that it's just funny and we're just going to laugh at it and ignore it. We've had a prime minister in the same vein, where it's just funny and it's just silly and we just laugh at it, and it's fucking serious.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's hard to go back to that once you've made it silly.
Yeah.
Because it's just a meme.
Exactly. You almost, people would make the jokes, oh, he's going to become the president, haha, very funny. And then like the reality hits and you're like, oh God, what have you done? I mean, I remember while we obviously couldn't vote back when I was this young, but like think about 2012 when Harambe was such like a big like popular thing. There were people who were writing Harambe's name on a ballot thinking that was a joke. Like,
I remember.
Like you look back and I'm like, that is a serious thing that like, that vote could have gone in a different direction.
The Trump election, like
I think it woke a lot of people up a bit.
Sticks in my mind, because I lived at home still, and my mum came in and woke me up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and was like, he won. And I was like, what? And she was like, he won. And I was like, I could not wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Like it just seemed like you said, like an impossibility, like a joke.
I think what you say about echo chambers as well earlier, like we had the same with Brexit here. Like I was on holiday with my dad when Brexit happened, and obviously in our circles it was just like, obviously not, why would that happen? And then it just did, and it's like, oh, people think that. Yeah. But as well, when it is so polar, and it's difficult because obviously you want to like shake people, but obviously when it becomes so polarizing, those people become silent, and then they're voting silently, and they're pushing through bills as silently as possible, and even in workplaces they're kind of employing silently, and they're like wanting to promote you silently.
You can even look on that silent end of a certain game that recently came out that people would stop posting their going live tweets and just kind of silently play the game. Like, it's in a very similar vein. But
Yeah.
going back to what else can people do is when some of this stuff is going on, I always say, like, really just look out for like the people that are affected by this. If there's a law that's being passed right now that's anti-trans, check in on these people, because again, you truly don't know how something as simple as like one little message or you coming by when they're streaming on a rough day can truly just shape that day and make things a little bit easier, because a lot of the time we as humans just don't tend to think about how our words are going to like actually like affect that person. And sometimes you think about it in the negative, but you also don't see it in like the positive, where if you say something really nice, or you check in on these marginalized creators on this male dominated platform, well, you're going to have a positive trend, even if it's that small little thing. It sets a tone that other people start to feel better about themselves and want to keep doing this for that reason.
And it obviously signifies to your space as well that like they're welcome, even if like they might not have spoken before. There's always people watching that aren't speaking. And I think that's very obvious on Twitch, but I think that's life. There's always people that are listening or seeing you from afar or whatever, and they're just, you might not even know it, that you're positively or negatively affecting them.
Yeah, 100%. I have family definitely that, like, while I try to very much have my streaming career separate than, having my family involved, most of them do know of what's going on, whether it's because my mom is out posting about it or so on and so forth. Like I do have people that will be like, how are things? I try to keep up, that kind of thing. And that means a lot, knowing that, especially people that might not be as in, deep into like the internet culture are still trying to have that like investment in what I am doing and see that it is providing me some sort of joy, but also a purpose.
Definitely. I just when you were saying there about your mum posting things, I just made me laugh because I was like, it's not just my mum that just posts my life out on the on Facebook for some reason.
There's a clip of back when I got partnered, my mom, being who she is, came into my room after I had called her as it happened. She has a balloon in one hand and a Jello shot in the other.
Oh my god, that's so good.
I love it.
I love it when my mum posts stuff like, oh, I really need a makeup artist for this shoot, or I really need a DJ to cover me for this gig, and like she'll share things, and it's like, how many DJs do you have on Facebook, mum, that are like, gonna see this? It's just like, you're just like, oh, like the thought is there, but you're just like, oh.
It's so funny, isn't it?
Exactly. Those gestures. It's something like that where it just makes you feel appreciated, it makes you feel valued in what you're doing, and that goes such a long way for just wanting to further do whatever it is that we're doing.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Thank you so much for being here, because I think people are really excited to hear from you, and it's been really nice to have you on. And I've been following you on Twitter for like a long time. I can't even remember where I remember it was from Fall Guys, I think we raided one time, but really nice to have you talking about this more serious stuff.
Yeah, it was super sweet of you to reach out, because again, like we hadn't really interacted before, and like this was like 2 days ago. You immediately reached out and I was like, yes, I want to do this, let's get involved.
Actually most of the guests I don't know and haven't spoken to properly ever or at all, but it was just not even people that like Twitch, for example, more like Twitter, people that I see that are actively talking and saying things. And it's like, not only would I think they'd probably be comfortable because they're obviously very openly talking about these things, but it's just like, those are the kind of people that I want to platform as well, because it's just what we were saying earlier about kind of being more silent or comfortable or whatever. It's like pushing forward those people that aren't sitting comfortable and are talking about things like on Twitter, outside of Twitch, outside of the stream, just every day, and just here, there and everywhere, positive, negative, just like reality. And I think that's something you and all the guests that I've asked do really, really well. And that is why all those names came to my head, because most of the people that I've had on stream I've never spoken to before.
I think you're doing a great job, and if you ever need me to come on or just chat about something again,
thank you so much.
I will quickly leave that and allow you to move to the next one.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here
for the first time. Take care.
Thank you so much. Goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow myself and Chloe via the links in the description. And in case anybody is new here, this is episode 4 in a series. So there are 3 other episodes already out, already ready to go, but we'll see you here soon for episode 5. Each episode is available here on YouTube or audio only on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. See you soon.